Talking about the evolution of a global online collaboration, well, I'm going to actually start out quickly by just talking about the beginning. So the first half of this presentation, I'll actually be talking about how we got started at the Shizuoka Institute of Science and Technology with our Moodle system, and how that actually became an institution-wide system, and then how using Moodle, essentially using a globally used tool, means that expanding outside of our classroom, outside of our school, and even outside of the country makes is very possible, especially because we're all using a worldwide standard for how we're going to interact and how we're going to use e-learning. But the beginning was really a humble beginning, because it started with one teacher, and most beginnings usually are. But it started basically because I was a part-timer at SIST, and when I was a part-timer there, I could only see my students once a week, and that's not enough for a decent education. I figured I wanted my students, instead of just working on English once a week, I wanted them to actually be interacting with the content throughout the week. And so I started doing online activities with them. And then I think it was Kevin Ryan who actually said to me, well, why don't you use Moodle? And I don't know why not. So I downloaded it, double clicked on it, and it didn't do anything, because you need a server to run it on and a lot of things. So I had to do a lot of learning in those early months. But then once I actually started using it, I also started getting friends online. I said to Greg McNabb, a colleague at SIST, said, hey, we've got, I've got this thing that I've been doing online, and I think you'd like to do it too. What do you reckon? You want to give it a shot? And told him about it, showed him the system. And he said, yeah, that'd be a nice little add-on to my classroom. So we ended up coming up with a plan of, okay, we want to improve education in general. That's our general goal for a long time. So how are we going to do that and increase active learning opportunities in the classroom? Well, we can take the more rote type stuff, or the quizzes or things like that. We can put those online and get them out of the classroom. So that frees up the classroom time for, say, more TBL, more active learning type opportunities as well. And it also gives students opportunities to actually manage their own learning, because their own pace, they actually have to find time to log into the system, etc. So it's promoting them to guide their own learning journeys and give them a little bit of autonomy. And we just figured, okay, setting up e-learning is a good way to do that. And if we really want to get good bang for our buck, we can make that a university-wide system and let everyone benefit from the efforts that we're going for to put this together. So we sort of figured, okay, in order to get the big benefits, we actually have to start from the university-wide perspective and let it trickle throughout the entire university so that everyone can use it. And this was the rationale behind building a single university-wide system. So the thing about going institutional wide, though, when we're actually talking about a science and technology university, is that we can't just focus on language learning. So going beyond CALL was a necessity. We could not actually just use something like Paul Rain's system, which just focuses quite narrowly on English language learning, or there are plenty of textbooks that actually nowadays come with their own LMS, but their LMSs are only focusing on language learning. But we wanted to actually have full administrative support from the university. Well, they're not going to do that for English. So in order to do that, we had to go beyond CALL and avoid the problems with CALL-only systems in science and technology universities, like them being seen as just a side project, seen as something that, okay, it doesn't really count as part of our educational landscape. It's just something the language teacher's doing. And so to turn it into a more of a growing concern, what we had to do was look outside of the English department and look at what the needs of the entire university were going to be. So this is where I actually go into the idea of running a little bit counter to your general common knowledge. There's a common phrase: "You can't please everyone," and you can look online and you can find dozens and dozens of graphics like this one that say you can't please everyone. But the advice that I would actually give for if you want to start a really fully fledged massive collaboration with teachers, well, you have to try to please everyone. So that's where you need to be aiming. Even if you're not going to be 100% successful, there will be some problems along the way. But if everybody can work on those problems together collaboratively, then there's pretty much nothing you can't do. And so that's why we actually went for Moodle, because Moodle actually can do anything. And to read my slide, I'd say, yes, I mean anything. Or I should say perhaps everything. But it might not be able to do it right out of the box the minute you actually install it. See, Moodle is modular, has plugins. So you can actually download a whole bunch of plugins because people around the world are already collaborating to build these things, and they make them available to the greater community. And then, so if a math teacher needs some specific tool for teaching mathematics, they can build that as a plugin, put it in, and then that functionality is now available to everyone in the world. So it's already a global collaboration that is helping you try to please everyone. So it might not do it out of the box, but you can actually get there. So then, based on Moodle, we were able to build the one system to rule them all. And we could present this to our faculty and have them actually saying, okay, you have my science and you have my math and my English. Everybody is coming on board because everybody can use this system. There's no bar to prevent them. So it takes lots of work to build such a system. And it actually does take work to manage the Moodle, to enroll the students, create the student accounts, and to train the staff in how to actually do it. My advice would really be to get the institution to do that. If the university or the school does all of that groundwork, then the teachers can just focus on teaching. The students just focus on learning, and everyone's really, really happy. And my university really decided, yeah, let's get a Moodle administrator to do all that work, all that grunt work, so that everyone can benefit. And that became me. So I don't think that that was exactly according to plan, but well, it turned out fairly well in the end. But anyway, it happened. Ideally, I think you try to get someone else to do it though. So anyway, after I started, people started coming on board, and people were basically telling their friends. We didn't actually make it a rule, a hard and fast rule saying, okay, everybody needs to use this system. It has been decided. This is our system. We didn't actually go for it in that particular way. We just got people, friends help friends Moodle was basically the way we got people on board. We said, okay, the basic groundwork of actually building the system, maintaining the system, and enrolling students, that is done for you. But learning how to use the system and learning how to use it well and effectively is something that, okay, ask your colleague in the next office. Because we wanted to build a community of use rather than just give a directive. And also was sort of thinking, okay, if people of their own volition come and build something, they'll be much more proud of it and they'll build a much better product than if they're told, you must do this. So instead of forceful, we just showed them, hey, this is how these are the problems that can be solved with this system. If you have other problems that you'd like us to solve, let us know what you need us to do, because we're going to try to please everyone. So let us know what you need and we'll try to make it happen. And so people started telling their colleagues about it, and it sort of had this viral spreading. we didn't have 100% of professors come online, and we didn't have 100% of subjects either. But the subjects that remain offline to this day are subjects like sports 1, sports 2, sports 3, things that really don't have very much in terms of an online component compatibility. So we're not terribly worried about being globally dominant, but we just want to help as many people as possible. And so that's the perspective we took. So in order to make it very easy for the students and staff to actually use it, what I did was created the system, branded it. We called it iLearn@SIST. And I'll mention that. I think it's on the next slide. But we also created user tours online, so each student could actually have the same initial experience when they first log into the site. Their accounts are set up for them. They don't have to set it up. And in fact, I wouldn't trust my students to set it up, because you tell them enter their student number or something, they'll enter the date of birth or something, and everything gets messy. So we set it up in advance using the central database of student information to do that. Then we made a rule that was that all English classes must use the Moodle. And the reason we made this rule was, well, first of all, English teachers wanted to collaborate. So it wasn't really difficult to get all the English teachers convinced. It was, hey, we've got these materials, these listenings, these readings, and if we make a template course and then just everybody has a course based on that template course, well, everybody's starting with a lot more resources than we otherwise would have had. So it was an easy sell. But beyond that, for the university-wide part of this, it was important to have all the English classes online so that the students in their first semester at our university, every single student would get experience at using the system. That way, later on, when other teachers come on board and say, hey, students, hello, my students in Science 101. Okay, so the course content, a lot of content, additional content is going to be put on iLearn, so go get it. It's on iLearn, go get it. That's all they have to say to tell the students where they need to find their materials. The rest of it is taken care of for them. This makes collaborating on this project a lot more appetizing to all the other professors in the university, because all the university students, all the students know this system, and you as the teacher do not have to guide them through it. That guidance has already been taken care of by someone else. So we also made sure that it was mobile accessible, because mobile learning at the time was somewhat young, but we were recognizing from the data that we had, most students initially anyway, were using the system mostly on their way to and from school, in particular on their way to school. So when you see students actually sitting down on the train, fiddling with their mobile phones, many of them were actually studying. They were logging into the site and checking their class content for the day. So we made sure that the mobile interface was definitely going to be a priority so that we could encourage that behavior, because we thought, hey, that's better than playing games on their phones. And so that was also an important part of the process. It did mention the branding, and I'm particularly proud of it. So I'm just going to give it a little plug here. It actually looks like it might be a name off of iMac or iPhone or iPod, but actually it's a dad joke. It's our logo looks a little bit like an emails at mark. So I learn at SIST. That's where I learn. Yeah, okay. It's a dad joke. I have that kind of sense of humor. So reasons to go institutionalized that I would recommend really is that it helps you collaborate because it starts out as a collaboration. But ultimately, this will lead to less work and more resources being available for you. And that's sort of the part that I'm going to go on to just next. The students do love it, And they do because they only have to master one system. And otherwise, every single subject that they studied beforehand, it was every subject that had an online component, it was a different system every single time. Now it's a one-stop shop. They go, they log in, they get everything they need, they log out, and it's simple. And the more teachers on board, the stronger your system's going to get, because every teacher who collaborates on the system, they're not just users of a system, they're collaborators. They're helping you make it better, stronger, and giving it more functionality for different types of subjects. They have ideas for developing new plugins that are going to be more useful for not only ourselves at our school, but also worldwide. So the more people who collaborate on this project, the stronger it gets. So one example of said collaboration in terms of Kyosei, in terms of useful resources, is that we also instituted an observation role in our Moodle. So that means that any English teacher can view by mutual agreement, can view any other teacher's courses. The price is that you must let all the other English teachers view your course when they want to. So it's a mutual reciprocative type of observation thing that we've got happening there. And so English 2, English 2, English 2 is all the same in each of these courses. So what you'll find is, for example, Greg and Sean, they both have courses of English 2 and they're very similar. And Greg used this video. And this video was so awesome. When Sean saw it, he thought, oh, I just gotta have it. So as I say, sharing is caring, or stealing is feeling. He yoink, pinches it and puts it straight into his course. Now, of course, there's a little bit of etiquette needs to be observed here, in that Sean should not post in English 1 contents that Greg was actually going to teach in English 2. Because otherwise, 6 months down the track, Greg's going to be confronted with students saying, oh, we've already done this, sir. And so, yeah, there are a few little pieces of etiquette we have to observe. But for the most part, this has been a massive roaring success. In particular, in the COVID times in early 2020, when Sean actually, he's another of our part-time teachers, and he and I were teaching the same courses. And so we were sharing materials all the time. He would do a PowerPoint one week and say, hey, I had the time to do the PowerPoint for our Big Blue Button or Zoom type lesson this week. What do you think? And I said, oh, great. Can I use that? Yeah, sure. Go for it. And then the following week, I would make the PowerPoint and I'd give it to him. So lots of sharing really at the nitty gritty teaching level. That made our experience of COVID a lot easier, because I wasn't bearing the full brunt of having to teach online. I had Sean doing half my work for me. Geez, that was good. Another side benefit of having this observation thing comes in the form of teaching standards. So not just being a collaboration, but when in particular, this was noticeable when new Hijokin Koshi, new part-time teachers came to our school, and they were sort of wondering, okay, how about the level of the students? How should I actually structure the level of my courses, my teaching? How fast should I progress through the content? Well, you can sort of get a bit of a feel for that by looking at other people's courses who have been teaching there for a while and seeing the templates. It gives you a little guidance as to, okay, this is the sort of support we need to give our students. So everybody can actually see that. And that makes for a benefit that otherwise wouldn't be had. The students also, as I mentioned to you before, they absolutely love being on a single system, because they've only got the one system to master. And when they run into problems, they don't have to ask the teacher how to use it. They ask their friends. And students do like asking their friends rather than asking teachers. I don't know, go figure. I think we're not cool or something. But anyway, the senpai says to the kohai, yeah, I started using this system ages ago. This is how you log into the Tadoku program. This is how you log into this course. This is how you do this. And they help each other out. So that side of the collaboration also is happening in the students. So. And now currently in 2020, we've got something like 67% of all enrollments. That's, you know, including sports and things like that. 67% of all enrollments are now online, which we'd never be able to do if we just stuck to call. So this collaboration that started with a couple of teachers is now gone institution-wide, and everyone's able to participate to make it better. So this is where I'm actually going to stop talking so much about the system that we use in Shizuoka Institute of Advanced Technology and talk more about the International Virtual Exchange Project. Now, this is where the collaboration really goes global. So Moodle's concept as a worldwide LMS is to empower users, empowering educators to improve our world. And so there are a lot of institutions worldwide are using the same system. And it's the same as everybody using, you know, Microsoft Word or something. Everyone uses the same sort of HTTP, you know, the internet is based on standards. So everyone can collaborate and everyone can share stuff online because it's easy, because everybody's on the same thing. So the International Virtual Exchange Project is built on Moodle, which makes it a lot easier to collaborate. Eric Hagley up at Muroran University, when he was still there, he created the project together with a guy from Colombia called Ruben Pulgarin. And they just got together one day and they said, oh, we can use this system and then we can collaborate and get our students to exchange messages online. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Yeah. And then other countries also joined in. So it comes to this year, around about 2,500 students are actually from several continents and 15 countries, and they're all communicating together in English. That's a pretty global collaboration happening there. And the server is actually part of a Kakenhi project. So participating in this project costs nothing. It's free. And it's a global collaboration. It's pretty good, actually. So some of the countries that participate are listed up on the screen now. The main ones are Japan and Colombia. Those are where it started. Colombia actually has the SENA set of schools, which is a countrywide, nationwide school system, and they have the entire SENA coming online each year, twice a year, to participate in this exchange. So there are a lot of Colombian people who are talking with a lot of Japanese people. The other countries are all there to varying degrees. Thailand is sort of coming on a bit more nowadays. In this last exchange that just finished a couple of weeks back, Indonesia, Vietnamese, Chinese and Koreans were all talking with my students. So that was pretty impressive to watch. The actual exchange itself usually revolves around 4 topics, and these do change a little bit from year to year. But in 2019, when we were doing it, these were the actual 4 that we actually had. Part 1 was introduce yourself, and it usually is. It's just a way of getting everybody to find out how to use the system, who else is there, and how to speak with them. Part 2 went to events. Part 3, the culture around me in terms of everyday culture rather than special events. So we contrast that with the events thing. And part 4 is what I've learned, where people reflect on what they've done. Each of these, part 1 through 4, are 2 weeks each. So the entire IVE project, each semester is an 8-week affair. However, we also have the open forum, which is where people can freely come in and communicate on any topic they want. And this has proved incredibly popular as well, especially because part 1 to part 4, that focused discussion is more small group discussions. So trying to get a bit more of a bond between the students. Whereas the open forum is, well, it's more open. So you post a message there, all 2,500 of the currently participating students can view that. We have some side projects as well, including one is the recipe book. So students actually post it. All of these recipes that you see on the left-hand side of the slide there, that's all student generated content. And you can even perhaps see, I think you can see my mouse anyway, where sometimes students actually do mess up a little bit and post the same thing 3 times. So that happens, but that's all student generated content. We had, you know, hundreds and hundreds of recipes from all around the world coming in, just having students saying, hey, have a taste of this. So real good, authentic communication online. Now, in a year in particular, 2020, where people can't go overseas, people can't experience things, well, you have to experience things from home. This you experience without leaving your house. Another one, to take students outside, we do the photo of the day. And the photo of the day can be simply, you know, view outside your window. So this one on the right-hand side is just a view of someone who took a photo outside of the window in Hakodate. Great, I'm going to feel a little bit refreshed now that I feel like I've actually, well, the next best thing to going outside, actually. So this was also pretty awesome. So please feel free to join us for this collaboration. Built on Moodle, so that it's fairly easy to integrate with your existing Moodle if you actually have an existing Moodle. It's also very easy to just come on board if you just give us a list of your students and they can actually come on board as well. You don't actually need to have a Moodle or anything. You don't need to pay anything for it at all. If you're interested in actually getting your students onto this collaboration, please send us a mail or just check out the site at IVEProject.org. And that is all I really have to say without being asked questions. So please feel free to point your questions in my direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adam. Let's open it up for Q&A, everybody. Thank you very much.
Hi, Adam. This is I'm Jared from NUS. Can you tell me what version of Moodle you use? I know at my school we have the Moodle Classic, and is it compatible with Moodle Classic?
So yes, all of the Moodle versions are somewhat compatible with each other. Classic is a term that I don't really hear used, but I'm guessing you might mean 1.9 even?
Perhaps, like when we download the app for the phone, you have to do the classic version. So I don't know what it's called.
Essentially at SIST and for the IVE project, essentially what I try to do is do the updates twice a year in the semester break. Mm-hmm. Because Moodle actually releases a point release every 6 months. So it's a good idea when you're building a system to update every 6 months, because that way the changes in the system will be small. Mm. And being in the semester break, it's kind of easy to deal with. Recently, I changed the theme on my school's Moodle as well. And when I changed the theme, that's a big change to the look and feel of the site. So I keep supporting the old theme for 6 months while people are getting used to it. And then they can change over to the new theme gradually. The next semester, they'll all be on the new theme. So trying to keep, if you're setting up a school Moodle, or if you're trying to keep a school Moodle going, really recommend every 6 months. So we do that, and we're never more than 6 months behind the latest version. One last caveat on that would be, it's a good idea not to get the newest version the day it comes out. Tends to have bugs. So I'm sneaky a little bit, perhaps. I let other people find the bugs before I update. So anyway.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure. Go ahead.
I might have run this past you before at another meeting, maybe Shizuoka Jut. But I just thought the answer that you gave was, I think everybody should hear it, and I wouldn't mind a refresher on what you said as well. In terms of inappropriate content or a comment or something, if a student was to, I don't know, well, I think we all know what we mean by inappropriate, something kind of that shouldn't be there. How would it be monitored? Is there would you be able to, does the system recognize inappropriate language, images, etc.?
Well, the system is indeed searchable. So, and we do actually every now and again look for inappropriate content. And when we get reports of an inappropriate post, we'll go in there straight away and take a look and, damage control. It does happen sometimes. And in particular, second language learners are not always attuned to what is appropriate and what's inappropriate. And that's the wonderful thing about a project like this, is they get to learn that. There's not very many, there are not many courses, I would think, English textbooks, for example, that deal with 4-letter language acquisition.
Right.
This semester, in fact, so when I set up my students this semester, I actually set them up and I told them, please write a title that will grab people's attention and have them read your post. Right. And some of them used a few 4-letter words in there and got quite colorful. Okay, the following week in class, I actually said to them, okay, I'm going to teach you about swear words and why we can't use them everywhere. And so, yeah, we do look, we do pay attention, and we do edit them out sometimes, because the students typically aren't trying to annoy people, offend people or anything. They're just doing it because they actually do not know better, and they're trying the waters, you might say. Okay. And so once I did that class with my students, they didn't actually have any more issues for the rest of it. And I felt that that was really one goal achieved, because my students have learned to be more appropriate. So that was a great result. But yeah, it's an ongoing concern, and teachers looking every now and again is about the best we've got for that.
Right.
Really, because actually, I mean, it's not always swear words or something like that. It can be just generally offensive content. You know, somebody's discussing their religion, and, another student might belittle it.
Yeah,
not really trying to be belittling, but they come off that way and they really cause offense or something. We have to teach them.
Yeah, I think that it's said as well that we need to remember that our students are young adults. You know, they're not children at the same time. We don't have to have them only speaking about food and hobbies, you know, the safer topics. But obviously there is a line that needs to be kind of drawn.
Yeah, well, also we don't actually let high school students or junior high school students in, partly because we don't want to bear the responsibility for someone who can't really take responsibility for themselves.
Right.
So yeah, because of that, the young adult thing is what we do depend on quite a bit.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
So others? Oh, hello, Andrew.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
All right. The international virtual exchange you mentioned sounds very interesting. I'm wondering what it would look like as part of a class, like a spring to fall class. Is that the kind of way you do it, or would it be kind of a...
Yeah, in my classes, what I typically do with my students is I assess them on it, and I tell them that they're not assessed on how many posts they write or how many words they write. They're assessed on how many engagements they have with other people. So how many interactions. And an interaction there, I sort of have to define it for them, but it's okay. You write a message and you send it. Somebody else responds to you. So you've got bi-directional exchange of information. You have lots of fruitful conversations like that, you get yourself a good mark. And so that's how I actually approach the topic of, okay, how are you going to start a conversation? How are you going to engage someone? How are you going to ask them more questions and further the conversation? And so these aspects of the genre of conversation I can teach in the classroom, and then I can let them go and apply that. And so that's usually how I'll take it. And it does mean sometimes chopping and changing the textbook. So I've been known to go, oh, we're going to study, okay, this is week 2. We're studying unit 15 of the textbook today. Why? Because it's more appropriate to what's coming. So the timing, the scheduling does not mean I'm going to follow the textbook week 1 to week 2, week 3. If you're about to go into the introduce yourself topic, and there's a great unit in the textbook that's not unit 1 on that, I'll bring that forward. When we're talking about events, and there's a great unit in the textbook on events, well, I want them to study that events unit just before the events topic starts on the IVE. So I do integrate it a lot in those respects as well. Okay, is that
kind of? So the IVE is also kind of on a schedule.
Yes, it's it is scheduled because we having so many people from so many parts of the world. We have to sort of focus everyone to this is the time when we're going to be talking about this topic. Otherwise, it's everybody's okay. Who goes first? For the less structured stuff, we use the open forum for that. So that's why the open forum exists, so that it's not all us just telling them what to happen. After the 8-week period of the part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, if students choose to continue interacting in the open forum, which many do, they're perfectly free to keep going. We keep it open. We don't close it. But yeah. Yep. Fern?
Okay, so I'm just kind of following on from what Andrew was asking, I think. Checking I understand. So you have an 8-week period, and is that kind of on a loop then? It finishes and then they start from topic 1 again, or is it following the Japanese semester?
So not really. It's kind of a mix of all the world's semesters to try and find an 8-week period that has enough overlap between, say, in particular, the Japanese and the Colombian sides of the first two, because they're the most most people are from those two countries. So we try to find a time that is in semester, an 8-week period that is in semester for Japanese people and for Colombian people. We find 2 of those each year. And so there's a spring semester one, and there's a autumn semester exchange, 2 sets of 8 weeks. During the rest of the time, we don't actually have ongoing exchanges, but it's something we're looking at perhaps developing in the future. So if I mean, these things, these collaborations, as I said, the more people who come on and have an idea, hey, how about if we have something for the holidays or something, we can, any good idea will be entertained. So though we don't have it today, I can't guarantee that we won't have it next year, because we might. So.
Okay, thank you. And that you may have kind of answered my next question, which was the continuity, because I see you're sponsored by a Kaken grant.
Yes, yes.
That will end. Are you planning to continue this indefinitely, or does it have an end point?
We are planning to, because we've got so much momentum on it, we think when the Kaken finishes at the end of 2021, it would be a shame to let it die. Yeah. So we definitely will be, we're not 100% sure exactly which avenue we're going to take, if it's going to be corporate sponsorship or if it's going to be sponsorship through an NGO or an MPO or something like that. But yes, indeed, we do have full intention to keep it going well and truly past the end of the Kakenhi grant.
Okay, thank you.
We've still got a few more minutes left if we have any more questions.
If no one else does, I was wondering how so there's kind of more of a general forum for students to interact with in a larger group, but then there seems to be a smaller group put together. How are these? Is this one class in Japan matched with one class in Colombia, or how are they grouped together?
Cool question, because that's changed actually. a few years ago. So what we did have before was we'd have in each class, we may have up to say 10 students would be in a group, and they'd be matched with a teacher who has their 10 students in Colombia, for example. And each group would be a mixture of 10 of my students, 10 of their students type situation. We found that this was a little problematic because students would sort of game the system in that they would ask and answer each other's questions within the same class. So you'd have my Japanese student interacting with my other Japanese student, defeating the purpose of an international exchange completely. So at least if you're going to talk with another Japanese person, make it someone from Hokkaido or somewhere else.
Right, I see.
Right? Yeah. So we changed the way of splitting up the groups, and now what happens is every single student from each class is put into a group, but basically they're all in separate groups. So no two students in my class will be in the same group.
Right. Okay.
So if we've got groups from say 1 to 300, then student A from mine is in group 1, student B from mine, group 2, and so on and so on and so on. And that loops around so that no two students from the same class are in the same group.
Right. I see. Yeah. Thanks.
So we also try to make sure that also encourages more. We try to get it as diverse as possible. So especially we try to do that with people like the Koreans when there aren't so many Korean people in the exchange yet.
Right.
So we try to spread them thin so that everybody gets a taste of Korean culture.
All right. Okay. All right. So it's multicultural in each group, right? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I see. Okay. Thanks.
Unfortunately, there are sometimes not enough. Not enough people from certain countries to really go around. So you're guaranteed of getting a bunch of Colombians in there, though.
Right. Okay.
But it can also lead to some interesting conversations because you've got people from, say, Okinawa and people from Hokkaido, and they're discussing the differences in their own country's culture in English, which,
sure.
Although it's not as international as we'd probably like, it's also not too bad.
Yeah.